Hello and welcome back. I'm ShyWizard. I want to take a quick, brief, whatever you want to call it, tiptoe around map optimization. Not going to get too deep into duplicate files and things like that, but I want to show you something that can be done relatively simply but time consuming for sure, but can be done without any extra programs or whatever else. If I'm doing a full sort of what I would say a full map optimization, I would run a program like Duplicate File Finder or something like that would locate any obviously any duplicate files that I could then remove and whatever else. But this is going to show a relatively straightforward, but again, like I say, time-consuming method that will use just Giants Editor and a little bit of time to remove any files that may be left behind from your imports and exports and all the other sort of stuff, because when you're bringing in objects to a map, especially when you're creating a map, you can experiment with different buildings and stuff like that. So you bring in one building, you save the map, go into game, don't like the building, so you then delete the building. But just by deleting the building, sometimes even if you delete the folder and everything else, it doesn't always 100% remove certain textures, because you may have integrated them into certain folders. So on this particular map, Ballincraig Estate, you may have integrated them into your textures folder or a mods folder like this or whatever else, to then try and go back through and locate all of those files is not always the easiest of things to do. So you end up with a lot of textures left behind that the map no longer requires. Now, for a map this size, it's not really a big deal. The file size, once it's zipped up, is probably going to be somewhere around 350 to 400 meg. So, you're not looking at a really big file size anyway, or a zipped file size. But if you're going to be working with a 4x or 16x map, then, once you get up over a gig, you could be running into trouble, especially if you're going to be uploading the map for people to play in a multiplayer scenario, because there are some limits on servers of what file size can be uploaded and all sorts of things like that. So this hopefully will show a way that can be used just with the Giants Editor, and as I say, a little bit of time to reduce the file size by removing automatically, if you like, removing additional textures and shaders and things like that the map does not require to run. So I'm sure you're already looking at this if you've played on the Ballincraig Estate map and going, well, my version done like that. I've added some bits and pieces into this particular map, just experimenting and playing around. I use Goldcrest Valley quite a lot for my videos because it's just easy to use, but it doesn't always give me all the information that I need, because sometimes when you're working with other maps, Goldcrest Valley is very basic. It doesn't have animated gates and things like that on it, at least not that I remember. And I've got a couple of different mods in here that I've edited some mods for my own purposes. This was the feed mix master for TMR. I needed a compost master on this particular map because I've added GMKFC mod. And for the size of the map itself, the compost master placeable 2K17 was just far too big. There was no real place to put it without completely rebuilding, changing the map a lot more than I wanted to. I like the style of the map itself, but a few little tweaks here and there, I think, for my play style and whatever else. I like to have a silo. I don't like tip on ground functionality. I find it really annoying the way that the heaps work and whatever else. So I needed a silo, so I just brought a small silo in, and the compost master and hose system for the slurry tank and whatever else, bits and pieces like that. But now that I've brought all those particular bits and pieces into the map, I thought it would be an ideal time to try and show a way that we can use the editor to then optimize things slightly, because I will have textures in here, because I've edited things on the mod itself, and bits and pieces here I've brought in various different textures to do with the tip unloading station park here, and whatever else. So I've more than likely got various different shaders in places that I don't need them anymore, and textures that I don't need anymore, and things like that. They're not required by the map. So I figured, why not just integrate this into a video to show you a method that I've used a couple of times when I've made massive changes to maps, to try and, get rid of all the irrelevant stuff, and as the title of the video hopefully will state, optimize the map somewhat. So what we can do here is use Giants Editor to help us along with that. There are certain manual functions that will be required to bring over particle systems and some other external material holders, some shaders that are linked into external objects like the external animals and things like that, because I've brought, like I say, goats and dogs into this particular map, so they won't be linked directly in the i3D. They will be external objects, like in the character I've got dog, and there are separate i3Ds in here, and again in goat, and also in my PS folder there's separate particle systems and whatever else in there. They will not be brought over with the export, unfortunately, so I will need to bring them over manually, which I will hopefully be able to demonstrate all that as we go through. And then there will be a lot of error, looking at error stuff. You need to run the map, and then either in Giants Editor to start with, and then go into game and look at your log text and run through the errors and try to link everything back together again to make it all work. But like I say, hopefully as I progress through the video that will become clearer. So what I'm going to do in this particular case is I'm going to use Giants Editor to help me create my optimization by exporting the entire map as it is into a new folder. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to just click on File, and then a lot of times I use the export selection with files if I'm just selecting one particular object that I want to take out of a map. But in this particular case I'm going to do export all with files, because I want to export everything in its entirety. So I'm going to click on that one there, and I'm going to go back to my desktop here. I'm going to create a new folder. I'm just going to call this test. Doesn't really matter what you call it to start with. And I'm going to open this up. Now what we want to do is copy the original file structure. So in this particular case, forget the Ballincraig estate to start with. We've got a structure of maps and then map01.i3d. So my test is the Ballincraig estate. And then in here I need to create another folder called maps, and make sure you spell it right. And then I need to open that up, and then I'm going to create a map01. Because the save as type is automatically set to i3d, it will do that for me, and I'm going to click save. This particular part is the most important when you're doing this. When it says, or it asks you, do you want to get the parent directory structure, click yes, because I want to keep everything structured exactly as it is from the original. If I click no, the export function of Giants Editor will randomize everything. It will put things in different places, path file names will no longer be the same, and all sorts of different things. So you would then have to restructure the i3D a lot more than if you click yes. Can be done, but I wouldn't recommend it. So I'm going to click yes here, and then it will do an export as it says in the bottom right, bottom left. And then once it's finished, this will take a lot longer if you've got a 16x map, but because this is such a small map, it's relatively quick. I have some errors shown up in the console here, but I'm not going to worry about those too much, because that can happen when you do an export, because it may be that the export has tried to take that file and put it into the other folders more than once, and because it's already there, it will then show up that it's failed to do it the second time round, and all sorts of different things like that. So I wouldn't necessarily be too concerned with the errors that are in the console on the export stage. So I'm going to close this particular map down, don't need to save that. And I'm going to open up my test folder here. If I open up the original Ballincraig estate map as well, we can now look at our folder structure and see what we've got. So if we go back into the root folder here, we can just check through and see what we've got and what is missing. So we've got fill planes, foliage, maps, shaders and shed. So we've got fill planes, foliage, maps, shaders, shed. So we're missing animal scripts, seasons, sky and all of these. So I need to take all of those and basically copy them over to start with. You need to go through all of these folders and just double check that everything is where it's meant to be. So in our fill planes folder, if we open this one up, there is quite a lot of parts in here that the actual map has not exported out. So I know because I'm using the regfill type script that I've got an additional material holder here for compost. So I need to bring that in like so, and all of the relevant texture files to do with that particular material holder. And then we also have one in here which is our compost diffuse for the distance channels. So I need to create a new folder there, and name that the same, and then bring over the compost distance diffuse. Now obviously I can go into the actual material holder here and just double check that there are no errors. We have a couple of errors by the looks of things, and you will obviously need to do this for all of the different external Y3Ds that will not be brought over automatically with the exports. So I've got some errors for some shaders and bits and pieces there which will need to be worked through. We can do that in a little bit, that's fine, we'll come back to that in a minute. So we'll just make sure we've got all of the other files and folders and whatever else. There will be a lot of going into the Giants editor, looking at errors and then fixing them one by one and then going through, but I want to make sure I'm bringing over all of the folders first, and the rest can be done as we go through it. Okay, so we can have a look here. I've got animals with some different textures in there. I haven't got the character folder, so I'm going to bring that one in. Got the chopped straw, but I may not have everything I need, so I'm missing the XML on that one, so I'm going to copy that in. Got an extra PNG, but that's just because I would imagine the author of this map has done a GRLE conversion of the, or GDM conversion or whatever else, using the GRLE conversion program, and then forgot to remove the PNG. That's fine, no big deal. So host system we've also got there, but again it's not brought out the XML, so we need to copy that one over. HUD, we're missing that folder, so we're going to bring that one over like so. We'll come back to the map 01 because there will more than likely be a lot of stuff in here that will be possibly irrelevant, not sure. Visible mask. Yeah, we're going to come back to that particular folder because that one would be a bit of a pain to work with. So objects, we'll bring that one over. Also the P systems and the scripts folder. Sounds. When it comes to sounds, this can be a bit of a pain because you can see there are a lot of sound files in this particular map, the original map, but they may not be required, so we will wait to see what errors we get there and work with those. The animated objects I'm going to need, map 01, all of these I'm going to need, so I'll bring all of those over. These ones here, the collision, GRLE, the terrain, forget the shapes one, these ones I'm not going to bring them over. I'm going to allow Giants Editor to recreate them itself. I wouldn't recommend that you copy them over, just let Giants do its thing and recreate them, which we'll do now actually. So if I just open up the map in Giants Editor, we'll probably have some errors of some kind in here, which is fine. So once we get this open, we can have a look, and we've got 2 errors, which is pretty good, I think, on a map export. One's actually a GIF and one's a BMP. Not sure why they would be in a map, but whatever. So we'll work with those, and I'm just going to save the map, and if I go back into that particular folder, we can see now that it's created those files for me. I didn't need to bring them over, but we still don't have our coal map GRLE, so we need to create that one as well. So we're going to go scripts FS17 map, create ground collision map. If you don't do this when you load up the game, it will give an error. It will say that it hasn't got a collision GRLE, so it's using a default one, but that error will show up every time you run the map because it won't have one. So you need to run this script so that it will create it, and then in our console it says it's generated the collision map and saved it in that path file name, etc, etc. And then we click save again so that it actually saves those changes. Fantastic. So we can close down the map, and we now have our collision map GRLE. Reopen the map again just to see what we've got and what we haven't got, because sometimes just doing those parts can make a big difference, and you need to reopen the Giants editor to take effect. And our errors are gone. So whatever those particular errors were before, they weren't relevant to anything, it would appear. Not quite sure on that side of things, but the editor has decided that they weren't relevant, so they don't exist anymore, so that's good. Maybe updating the map01.i3d by saving it, it's now fixed itself and done whatever it needed to do, so that's good. I'm happy with that. So we've got everything there set up, and the map is obviously as it was before, but there's a little bit more we need to do with this, because the Giants editor will only show us so much. It's only looking at stuff that's relevant to the map01.i3d. Any external objects like particle systems and pallets, any external i3ds and things like that, it will not recognize. So the only way you can get the errors for those items is to actually run the map in game, because then they will be loaded in. Any material holders and things like that will be loaded in, and the errors then will become present, but only once you actually get it into game. So I'm pretty sure we've got everything there. I'm going to work with the sounds a little bit later on, because I think they're going to be a bit more of a pain. Yeah, we'll work with that. So if I go back into here, I need to fix this one because we've got some errors in here that we need to sort out. So let's have a look what we've got. So fill icon shader, fill plane shader, grain unload shader. So let's have a look and see what we've got there. We need to bring over some shaders that weren't actually exported, again because that's an external material holder. The export process doesn't see that, and it won't then do it for you. So we've got grain unload shader, fill plane and fill icon. So we need that one and the grain unload. So we can select those and bring them in like so. Shared FX grain normal. We've also got a morph target and a PS sub UV, so morph. So we need to find those as well. So morph is there, and that one. So we can copy those across like so. FX grain normal. So let's have a look in here. FX grain normal. So that one needs to go into there and copy. Also that one as well. FX manure 4x1. Diffuse and normal. So we need both of those. So we'll go back into the fill planes and we'll bring those in. And also FX smoke 6x6_1, which is that one, and we need the diffuse and normal, so we'll bring that one in. all the others won't be required. So that's good. So we've got certain parts we've brought over. So closing that down again, I'm going to reopen it, just see what errors we get now. Sometimes just by closing it down, reopening it again, you get a different set of errors like we have here. So PS color shader is missing, so we need to bring that one in. So we'll go back into gear. Like I said, this is time consuming, but just, you know, go through it in a methodical sort of way and you should be good. So we'll bring that one over, and I've then got FX mask and FX clouds. So we'll go back into shared and clouds and mask, so we can bring those ones over, and then we can close it down again and go back into fill planes, open up our material holder again, and just see what errors we get now. And we've got no errors, so fantastic. All of those now are linked where they are meant to be. A little bit of manual work there bringing over parts, but you know, to be fair, it's not that difficult. It's just, like I say before, time consuming. I've done a lot of the work before because of the way I've imported the mods into the map itself. Originally, I've relinked all of the shaders to this one folder. So when I brought in the actual textures and whatever else, so I've brought in the compost, mix master and whatever else, I've taken the shaders from this particular folder and then put them in the main shaders folder, and then relinked all of the path file names before I imported the mod into the actual map itself. So I've done a lot of the work in the import process, and some of the other parts as well I've done the same. So I've kind of cut down on a lot of stuff. But when you're bringing in mods specifically, you know, if you've got the compost master and potato washers and things like that, you know, you have your mods folder or whatever else, and you just bring over the entire folder. So if I take something like this and I copy that entire folder straight over into my mods folder, this has got its own shared folder, it's got its texture folder with many different shaders in and stuff like that. So, you know, you could end up with a lot of different shaders and a lot of different shared files in a lot of different folders. So you have folders upon folders upon folders with lots of duplicates in. So on the import process, I tried to cut down on as many duplications of shaders and files and textures as I can. Doesn't always work, but for the most part I try to do that. But the export also will help, because where I've potentially got some duplication still remaining in the original import, with the export I'm now going to get rid of those because they will not be required by the map. So that's what this really is all about. So now I've got rid of those errors, we're going to go, let's just double check that we've got no errors with these particular i3Ds. That one's fine, and we'll just check if one of them's okay, the rest will be fine. Failed to open tile and mirror shader. Okay, so we need to bring over that particular shader. So let's go back to shaders, tile and mirror shader. So we'll copy that and paste that one into there. Go back into character, go, and we should be good. Yep. Okay, so a lot of the time it's just a case of locating files and just making sure you put them in the right folders and then link all the bits and pieces together. Okay, so got all of that stuff in there. I'm sure that they'll be okay. We'll check all that in game. Don't think there's anything else. I will just double check. Let's have a look at these dog feed. Just make sure that we've got the appropriate parts for these. That one's fine. That one's fine. So those are okay. Particle systems, we'll just double check that one. Just go through your i3D. So we're missing a particle system shader from that one. So we go back to our shaders folder and we want particle system shader, so we can copy that one and paste that one into there. Go back into here and just double check that. The forage one is not required, don't know why that's there, but it's not used, so we won't worry about that one. It's just in that folder, and I've copied that folder over manually, so it's just there. I don't really need it, but we'll leave it there for the video, it's fine. So what I'll do then is I'm going to put this into my mods folder like so, and I'll just open up the game and then shut it back down again, and we'll get our log text, and from there we can see what errors we have. Okay, so open up the game and just run it for a brief second, load it in the map and whatever else, exited back out again, and I've opened up the log text, which can be found in your Farming Simulator documents folder, log.txt at the bottom there. If you open this up, it will give you any errors and things like that. I'm running a couple of different mods, which I can ignore because they, got different things going on with them. But the ones I'm looking at are the ones for the map itself. So we've got some parts here to do with sounds. So there's some ambient sounds there. A lot of repeated missing files because there's lots of sliding doors, so every time it sees a sliding door as it's running through the code, it's looking for that particular WAV file and then can't find it for every single door on the map. And again with the switches and whatever else, and so on and so on. So we've got all of that stuff. We need to bring over the PDA map, which is in the map01 folder, and we've got some errors down here which is to do with the in-game map, so those errors there are linked into this one here. But everything else there looks okay. So what I would do then, I think obviously for you guys when you're doing your optimization, you won't want to do this, but for the actual video I'm going to cheat a little bit, and I'm just going to copy over the entire sounds folder just to make the video as short as possible. But you would need to go through your errors and then locate all of the different missing ones and then only bring over what is missing and not, don't bring the whole lot over again, otherwise kind of defeats the object of doing the map optimization. But for the video I'm just going to copy the whole folder because I'll be there forever going through all of those sound files. So that's fine. So if we go back, what were the other errors? Let's have a look. So we've got sounds. Oh yeah, the PDA map. So we go back into here and maps, map01, maps, map01, PDA map. So we'll take that one and paste that into there like so. Excuse me. So okay, we should be getting somewhere closer now. Material holder, that's fine. So I'm going to run the map again in game, and then we'll come back out, have a look and see what errors we have and go from there. So run the map again for just a couple of seconds just to give me my new updated log text, and looking through there we've actually got no errors I can see. These again are just ones I've got some additional mods in for carrot harvesting. Those can be ignored because I know what that error is. So we've got our compost material holder all registered correctly with the heap and whatever else. Advanced animals is all loaded in, no errors there, that's fantastic. Yeah, and everything else looks pretty good actually. So looking at that, we've got no errors showing up in there. So we'll just open up the map again, Giant said, just to have a look and see what we've got showing up in here. We should have no errors in here either. So a little bit of time to just bring over various different, no errors, fantastic. And you can see, the map is intact as it should be, exactly as it was before I did the export. So that's fantastic. All looks pretty good. So let's close that down. So I've got all of the parts, I say, that I've brought over manually, like the HUDs and whatever else. Again, certain files won't be brought over with the export. XMLs and things like that won't be brought in. So you'll need to go through each of the different folders and then locate specifically material holders, particle systems and things like that. They will be a bit of a nightmare because you'll need to go through them individually and just open them up in ShyWizard, separate to the map i3D, and just check for errors and then go through and join all the parts together, bring over certain files that won't have been brought over with the export. Animal scripts, again, these won't be brought over with the export. Any scripts and XMLs and things like that. Some texture files to do with icons, and because these are designated or identified by XMLs, they won't be brought over with the export because they're not part and parcel of the i3D, the map01.i3D. Seasons, textures, things like that won't be brought over with the export and things like that. Some shaders won't be, again, because they will be linked to external material holders or particle systems and whatever else. So you need to go through and just double check all of those. I've cheated a little bit by bringing over all of the sound files from the original map, but like I say, with the list that was quite a few different ones in there, it would have taken me too long to go through them in the video, so I cheated a little bit there. But you would need to go through those errors one by one and only bring in what the map required to stick with the optimization, if you like. There are a couple of things here. The fill planes folder, again, if we compare that to the original, there are a lot more in the original folder than we have now in the exported cut down version. Not quite sure why these are required by the map. It may have something to do with tip on ground, so there would be some further testing that would be required once you actually do the export and get no errors in your log. You would then need to run the map a little bit, tip some stuff on ground, using the tip on ground function, and just do a bit of testing before you either choose to run a full let's play or upload the map to be shared on the mod hub or whatever else. But for the most part, the export is done its job. So what I'll do is if I actually take the original, now that I've got no errors and I've brought everything over from the original one, I'm going to select all of these and zip this one up. Now I'm using WinRAR, and this is on normal setting, encryption wise, not the best setting. So even if I use best for the encryption, I may be able to get this down even further. Like if I go into add archive, it gives me compression method, sorry, not encryption. I could choose best instead of normal, which is normal is the default, and it may give me a much smaller file anyway, but I'm just going to stick with the normal for now so I can just compare the two, and we'll see what the file size difference is between the now newly exported version with a lot less in it than the original, and we'll see what the difference is between the two of them. So you can see straight away there that we've reduced that quite a lot. If I actually look at this one, we've got, is it going to show me? It's probably not going to show me, is it? There we go. 337 meg on the original Bal & Craig with my edits, obviously. And in this one over here, we've got 257 meg. So that's quite a drop in size just by doing that straightforward, well, somewhat straightforward export using ShyWizard. Now if I was to run through with a duplicate file finder and potentially remove any duplicate files as well, I could get that down much further. I may even be able to get it down much further, like I said before, by using the best compression method within WinRAR and not the normal one, but normal is pretty standard sort of default. But this is a small map, so it's not going to be a big file size anyway, but just by doing that I have reduced it quite considerably. If I was working with a 4x or 16x or whatever map, this would be something I would say would be a must to get your file size down as much as possible, and more than anything else, to remove any redundant files, textures, shaders, shared files, whatever else that the map doesn't require. If there's a lot of things in there that you've imported and exported and imported and deleted, it's going to leave stuff behind that you then don't need. The map doesn't need it. It's not required to run the map, so why leave it there? Do an export, get rid of it, reduce your file size, make your map run better. Win-win. Thank you very much for watching. Hopefully this was of help to anybody who was interested in looking into doing a bit of map optimization and whatever else. I'm ShyWizard. I'll catch you on the next one.